justification for killing the men, it breaks down pretty fast. There's no justification for the murder of these people. So it's an ugly, ugly story. Then we get to the place where, all right, what are we faced with today in 2003 as non-Mormon and ex-Mormons and anti-Mormons and others take a look at this story and try to make sense out of it. I think you also in this group are much more aware than I am. There are a lot of people out there who find not only Mormonism to be abhorrent, but find religion itself to be not healthy at all, in fact not benign, but dangerous. I have not had a chance to read Krakauer's book, Under the Banner of Heaven, but it's getting lots and lots of attention. It's selling like hotcakes, particularly in the East and in California, where people are more aware of Mormons, and it's a sensational story about the Lafferty case. The message seems to be there, as I talk with friends who've read it and read reviews, that religion, organized religion, in this case Mormonism, can and too often is dangerous and a bad thing, rather than just something that if you're not religion you might want to ignore. So we've got a big problem here as historians, and in your case, if you want to defend Mormonism. I'm a practicing Mormon. I don't smoke, drink, or chew, or go with girls who do. And, I give up my excess income once a month to the guy with the suit on at church and so forth. So I'm with you to a point. But as a historian, our job is to let the chips fall where they may. And I've looked at this story for many years, long before I became involved in the Mountain Meadows Association in 1998, so I've been involved in this whole mess for the last 5 years. And I think I know what happened there. I don't agree with Will Bagley. I certainly don't agree with Sally Denton. Her book outsold Bagley's book in a couple of weeks. I'm sure Will's hurting over that. Denton's book is just trash, frankly. The first chapter is about stuff that I know about firsthand, and I barely got through it with my stomach contents intact. But it sells well, and I'm getting email from people all over the country because I'm on our website link list, all the email that people write into the Mountain Meadows Association website. I get their message, and dozens of people are writing in and saying, I just finished Sally Denton's book. One man said, I hope that the American people within the next 10 years wake up and drive the Mormon church out of existence. 2 sentences in his message, I just finished Sally Denton's book and then must drive them out of existence. It's pretty hard to look at this story without having revulsion against the man who did it. I don't have ancestors who were there. Mine were here in Utah, but they were all up north, and some of you have ancestors who were there. It's awful, and I must tell you that I become very angry when people want to excuse what these men did. Do I understand why they did it? I think I do, but I still don't excuse it. And I've got a friend with whom I spent hours and hours and hours discussing the Mountain Meadows Massacre. He's a non-Mormon who's read voluminously on this subject, and it's interesting to get his perspective. And he doesn't agree with Bagley or Denton. We have a similar view of what happened. But I don't know, I'm trying to make you see this is just not fun. It just isn't fun. I've told my wife, who is about to divorce me over it sometimes, I wish, A, that it never happened, and B, that since it did, I don't know about it. I really wish ignorance on myself, which being a college professor makes me something of a sinner. Ignorance is bliss, the old cliche. What I'd like to do for a few minutes, and then we'll open this up to questions, is refer you to a particular incident that occurred, well, 2 incidents that occurred that I think puts a perspective on how the non-Mormon, anti-Mormon, quote-unquote, or // whatever you want to call people, how they view this. In October 1998, I was invited with the rest of the Mountain Meadows board, including descendants of the Bakers and the Fanchers and the Dunlaps and others, to visit with President Hinckley in the church office building. President Hinckley was with us for about 55 minutes. It was an amazing event. He talked about his history with the massacre. He was taken to the Meadows the first time in 1947 by his father. They walked the ground silently, shed tears. President Hinckley said he walked away knowing that this was a sacred place, and so he had a feeling for the incident. And then in 1998, President Hinckley was at Dixie College to dedicate the Pioneer camping ground there on the campus. Asked his folks to take him up to the Meadows. Was ashamed at the condition of the church property there. Called us together to say, what do you want to do? And the result was we built this beautiful monument down there that some of you, I'm sure, have seen, or I hope most of you have seen. A replica of the original cairn that the Army constructed over the rifle pit where 34 partial remains were chucked in May of '59. In the course of preparing to put that new monument there, we made every effort in the association to discover where remains were, because we knew that cairn had migrated a bit over the years. Farmers had knocked it down, vandals had carried off rocks and so forth. Brigham Young ordered it knocked down once, according to Dudley Leavitt. Was there with a party in the 1860s, and they came up to it and he ordered it destroyed. So we were worried that there were bones that we might discover, and the descendants of the Bakers and the Fanchers and others had made it very clear that they did not want that to happen. So we did a lot of cores. We had an archaeologist from BYU, Shane Baker, come down and do some cores to try to find the whatever graves might be there. Long story made short, he missed the Carlton grave by 6 inches, and the second scoop of the backhoe dug them up. That was on August 3rd, 1999. This resulted in a firestorm of activities. The remains and all kinds of confusion about what state law had to say about these things. The sheriff came immediately and pronounced that it was not a recent murder site, so it was an archaeological site, and et cetera. Eventually, the remains wound up at BYU. And I saw them just a few days after they were brought to BYU for the public archaeology folks to try to make some sense out of what they had. Partial remains, they found 29 individuals, so that we've known for years that some of that grave had washed away, and we've had accounts of farmers seeing bones sticking out of the ground and so forth. So anyway, eventually, because the BYU people didn't have the people to take care of it, they transferred the cranial matter to the University of Utah, where an archaeology graduate student now has her PhD. Shannon Novak was commissioned to take a hard look at the cranial material to see what she could determine from the cranial matter. In the meantime, the descendants in Arkansas became very angry. They wanted them reburied immediately. And enormous pressure began to come upon us in the association trying to keep this whole thing afloat to get the church and the state and whoever else we could to get those bones back in the ground. So we worked hard to get that done. And finally, the week before the dedication of the new monument, which was to take place on September 11th, Saturday, 1999, a man in Harrison, Arkansas named J.K. Fancher, who was friends with Dixie Leavitt, the governor's father, got on the phone and called Dixie and said, your son's got to intervene. So the governor called the state archaeologist, and within a few hours, the bones had been removed from the University of Utah and brought all together. And on Thursday morning, or Friday morning, the day of the funeral that had been scheduled for the bones, they were brought to St. George and brought to a funeral parlor where they were placed in 4 small little caskets and buried that afternoon at the Baptist funeral. You should have heard all the Mormons there trying to sing Amazing Grace. And the next day, you should have heard all the non-Mormons trying to sing, We Thank Thee, O God, for a Prophet. So there was some humor. Anyway, the end of that story is, and I'm talking too long here, I really want to open this up, so let me get through this very quickly. The end of the story is that in March of 2000,